welcome. I'm Asuma Kataoka and you're watching Gulf Today on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Heavy winter rains plummeted Gaza's Muwasi camp, flooding the makeshift shelters of up to 425,000 displaced Palestinians as residents struggled with leaking tarpaulins, inch-deep water puddles, and collapsing tents. After 2 years of war-devastated infrastructure, aid groups warn conditions remain dire as families seek refuge. King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia have sent condolences to Iraqi President Abdul Latif Jamal Rashid over the death of his brother, Shamal Jamal Rashid, while Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani also extended his condolences to President Abdul Latif Jamal Rashid and his family. Jordan's King Abdullah II has met with Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif in Islamabad to sign new agreements and deepen cooperation. The Jordanian king also called for full adherence to the Gaza ceasefire, warned against West Bank settlements expansion, and praised Pakistan's role in the UN Security Council and OIC. Also expressed solidarity after recent terror attacks in Pakistan. Syria's Interior Ministry has said that 2 people were killed and several others injured in a random shooting at a cafe in western Homs, with the assailants still unidentified. Authorities have secured the area, launched an investigation, and vowed to apprehend the perpetrators, condemning the crime and promising measures to protect public safety. Syrian Foreign Minister Assad Hassan al-Shaibani has met in Damascus with Anne-Claire Legendre, the political advisor to French President Emmanuel Macron, to discuss key issues of mutual interest. Both sides reviewed bilateral relations and explored ways to strengthen cooperation. EU official Olof Skog has said that the first ever dialogue day with Syrian civil society held in Syria, the EU officials held talks with Syrian ministers, underscoring the EU's commitment to justice and social cohesion in rebuilding Syria post-war. At least 4 migrants have died after 2 boats carrying 95 people capsized off of the coast of Al-Khums, Libya, with the Libyan Red Crescent confirming that 4 Bangladeshi nationals from a 26-person vessel were killed. A second boat carrying 69 migrants have also overturned, with authorities still unclear on the fate of those on board. Now we start with Israel and Russia. The Kremlin has confirmed that Russian President Vladimir Putin and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have held a phone call to discuss a wide range of Middle East developments. According to Russian media, the leaders have conducted a thorough exchange of views on the unfolding situation in the Gaza Strip, the implementation of the ceasefire agreement, and detainee exchange. The two have also discussed the status of Iran's nuclear program, along with efforts to stabilize Syria. The call follows heightened diplomatic activity surrounding the United States mission to the United Nations, which has formally urged the UN Security Council to endorse a draft resolution incorporating President Donald Trump's 20-point Gaza plan. Now for this discussion, we welcome Sasha Machta. He's a political commentator, joins us live from Jerusalem. Thank you very much, Sasha, for joining us again. Good to see you. Sasha, now looking at this, can you tell us how could Putin and Netanyahu dialogue influence, if it could influence any prospects of the durable ceasefire? And why is Putin talking with Prime Minister right now? Or what could this timing suggest in the motive of Russia?
So this conversation comes in the context of Russia draft to the UN Security Council resolution last Thursday, where Russia sent a counter-proposal where apparently it was supposed to be inspired by the US resolution in the Security Council, which was actually missing the International Board of Peace. So that was one of the main differences with the US proposal. But in the context of this UN resolution that's supposed to be passed in the Security Council, this conversation was held. So of course the topics discussed were the ceasefire in Gaza, the Iranian nuclear sites, but also Syria. We know that Russia has had a strong foot and stake in Syria for the past years during the Assad regime, and they do not obviously want to give up this important influence that they have in the region through Syria. So Israel and Russia in that sense have a common interest in keeping quiet in Syria. Regarding Iran, we see that Russia has played a double face. On one hand, they're discussing to have Iran not have nuclear weapons and to discuss the peaceful nuclear program, in their words, but on the other hand, they are part of the axis of Russia, China, and Iran that is actually waging a war on Israel. So we know that Israel and Russia's relations have been deteriorating for the past years, that Russia has stood by Iran, an existential enemy of the state of Israel, but the relationship is very complicated, and the situation right now in Gaza also requires complete consensus in the Security Council if the U.S. resolution were to pass, which is of course in the interest of everyone in the region. So we could see that despite the relations not being so strong, there's a lot of interests at the moment that are important for Russia and Israel to be discussing.
Sasha, what do you think? Well, why did Russia suddenly come up with this, peace truce deal, or what they sent or suggested? And you have already mentioned the difference between the one that was from U.S. and that the difference you have suggested. And also, what is in interest of Israel to talk with Putin right now?
So first of all, the main reason could be, or one of the reasons could be, that Russia, of course, wants to hide that they're fighting their own war, that they've been waging a brutal war on Ukraine for the past years, and they want to show on the international arena that they are peacemakers and not their true colors, which are seen every day on the battlefield in Ukraine, where this war has been unfortunately going on for far too long. So Russia wants to show their peacemaking side and their respect for international law while breaking all rules in their own war. So that's one of the reasons. And of course Russia has an interest in having a foot in the Middle East. Russia has always wanted to have a presence in the Middle East through Syria, through Iran, and of course that requires dialoguing and conversation with Israel, especially now as they look to counter American influence. The U.S. came to the UN Security Council with their own proposal, so now Russia, of course, will want to come with a counter proposal to show that they are still a global player and to assert their dominance in the region. So that is probably why we would have seen this call with Netanyahu, where Netanyahu, of course, also has to dialogue with Russia, being that huge superpower. All countries nowadays are forced to have dialogue with Russia, especially in the Middle East. They have such a strong presence, and most importantly also to discuss the resolution at the Security Council, which Russia has brought to counter the American one.
And how might this efforts of U.S. at the UN to push the 20-point Gaza plan intersect or clash with Russia's this plan suggesting to Israel, and if it builds Russia-Israel diplomacy?
So first of all, the U.S. proposal has to pass with full consensus, as it's a Security Council resolution, and given Russia and China's presence and their attitude towards the war, and obviously the clear side that they've taken for the past years on the axis of Iran and Hamas, I don't see Trump's resolution passing with consensus. So the Russia-Israel relations are also at a very, very significant low, and I don't think that this is going to be grounds to build up the relationship. In fact, Israel has just been improving their relations with Ukraine over the past months, and with Taiwan as well. Israel has a clear understanding that this battle is being waged against Western world, and that Ukraine and countries like Ukraine and Taiwan are standing on the same front that we're standing on. So it's very complicated to build a relationship with Russia while also fighting the same axis that Russia is part of, Iran and China. So yeah, the relationship is complex, and I do not see that the US resolution will be passed. So other solutions will have to be reached, and that's why the US and Israel are now thinking of dividing Gaza in two, one beyond the yellow line, which will be hopefully rebuilt without Hamas, and a side with Hamas. And the Gazan people will have to choose whether they want to see their fate under this brutal terrorist organization that completely ruined their lives, or to live under a rebuilt Gaza, which is backed by the whole region and Europe and the United States.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Sasha Majda for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on, the Israeli military says it has demolished a kilometer-long Hamas tunnel in northern Gaza's Beit Hanun, which had been used by the terror group to stage a deadly attack on Israeli troops nearly a year ago. Troops of the Shimshon Battalion have been operating in the Beit Hanun area in recent weeks to demolish remaining Hamas infrastructure, including the tunnel used in the deadly attack. The IDF has stated that the tunnel was around a kilometer long and dozens of meters deep. We welcome back Sasha Majda. He's a political commentator, joins us live from Jerusalem. Thank you very much, Sasha, for staying with us. Now, how big is this demolition of Beit Hanun tunnel, and how would it affect Hamas in Gaza? How would it further corner Hamas? And what implication could this destruction arise from Hamas?
Yeah, so first off, this tunnel, the destruction of this Beit Hanun tunnel is significant. There are still thousands of kilometers of tunnels under Gaza, which Hamas has built. They've built a massive complex of tunnels larger than a subway system practically, and this has been used purely to hide behind civilians, to hide behind their own civilians, and to wage a war on the state of Israel from underneath Gaza. So it's an impossible situation that Israel's been facing for years, where terrorists have had these terror tunnels to both hide, to both enter Israel, to hide, and to take hostages inside as well. So the destruction of every tunnel, especially one as big as Beit Hanun, is a significant blow to Hamas, because they've spent years building these facilities to seek their goal of the destruction of the state of Israel. They've used tunnels in the past to enter Israel. They've used tunnels to kidnap Israelis. In fact, Hadar Golding, the hostage that was returned, the body that was returned after over 10 years, was actually kidnapped when Hamas terrorists came out of a tunnel and took him and then brought him into Gaza and kept his body brutally for 11 years. So right now Israel has the opportunity to destroy all the tunnels in the yellow area, in the area beyond, on our side of the yellow line, which is where Israel has still an IDF presence. So if Israel were to take some time, because it is not going to be fast, Israel could clean essentially the yellow area from Hamas facilities. And I think that's the plan for now, that Israel in the meantime is going to be cleaning this area and removing the terror infrastructure that is on the Israeli side of the yellow line. On the other side, it's going to be more complicated, of course, with the ceasefire, but the plan right now is to isolate Hamas into the smaller territory that they have on their side of the yellow line, and hopefully create a Gaza on the Israeli side, which is free of terror infrastructure, which is free of Hamas. We still have also 200 terrorists which are stuck in an Israeli side tunnel, and that's also something that's going to play out in the next few days.
With that, I would like to thank Sasha Majda for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you. Now we move on and we stay in the region. Thousands of Israelis gathered in Tel Aviv protesting against Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government and calling for the establishment of a state inquiry committee to investigate the events surrounding Hamas's October 7th attack. Demonstrators have voiced concerns that Netanyahu's government is refusing to take the responsibility. Let's listen in.
מתוך הכאב הזה, דווקא מתוך האפר, אנחנו חייבים לקום ולדרוש את הדבר האחד שחשבנו שהוא מובן מאליו: חקירה עמוקה ויסודית של התהליכים, המחדל, ההפקרה. ועדת חקירה ממלכתית מלאה, עצמאית, שתחקור כל פרט, כל החלטה, כל מחדל, כל שתיקה.
Our government, who was in power when October 7th happened, and our Prime Minister, who was in power for at least the 15 years before that, are doing everything in their power to stop or to prevent the establishment of a national inquiry committee. They are trying to come up with all these solutions that are unacceptable. They are pretty much don't want to be investigated, and we are not having it.
The protests also saw calls for the return of the remains of 3 hostages still held in Gaza. Under the ceasefire agreement reached in October, Hamas is expected to release all surviving hostages, but the bodies of the deceased have yet to be returned. Let's listen into what the protesters have said.
נשכח לרגע את 3 החטופים שעדיין בעזה, רן, דרור וסות יסק. משפחותיהם וכל עם ישראל מחכים לכם. המלאכה עדיין לא הושלמה עד שכולם יחזרו. עד החטוף האחרון.
שלא רוצים ועדת חקירה ממלכתית. אני מזהיר אתכם שההיסטוריה תשפוט אתכם לחומרה, ושמכם יהיה לו אות קין לדורות קדימה, אחרי שהציבור יעיף אותם הביתה.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Yossi Cooper-Wasser. He's an Israeli intelligence and security expert, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Yossi, for joining us again. Yossi, why is government of Netanyahu or Netanyahu's administration not taking this state inquiry committee?
They are ready to establish a state inquiry committee. The question is what kind of a committee it's going to be. And some people want it to be a certain kind of committee that would be formed by the Supreme Judge. And Netanyahu claims that the Supreme Judge is biased against him and he doesn't want him to form the committee. He wants the committee to be formed by some sort of consensus between the coalition and the opposition on a paritatic basis, and this is the big debate. Of course, the opposition is not willing to cooperate with that. And so we are stuck because Netanyahu worries that the committee that is going to be nominated by the Supreme Judge is going to take a very biased position against him.
And what could be the potential consequences of establishing this state inquiry committee, according to what the people who are in the streets now in Israel are asking for, including the government's accountability and public trust?
Well, of course, there's enough responsibility and blame to share for everybody, because this debacle of October 7th touched every aspect of the Israeli public affairs situation. And that the government was responsible in a way for what happened, the military was responsible, the intelligence community was responsible. Everybody has a share in it. And I'm sure that once the committee is formed, one way or another, it will point at the responsibility of each of the elements involved. And there was a question, of course, is it going to be just saying that he and he, those are the people who are responsible for what happened, or was it going to be also blaming them and charging them with prices that they would have to pay for being responsible for this debacle? And that's another issue that is separating the different opinions about what kind of a committee we need, what authorities it should have. But I think that it's obvious that the committee is going to say that we were totally unprepared for what happened. We were misunderstanding the situation beforehand. we believe that we, and I mean almost everybody, I personally wrote something different before the war, just the opposite, but most of the people in charge were under the impression that Hamas is deterred, that Hamas hasn't the capability to carry out any kind of massive terror attack, and that Hamas is focused on improving the living conditions of the people living in Gaza Strip. This was, of course, totally wrong, and because of this belief, people were not preparing themselves to face such a wide-scale terror attack, in spite of the fact that we had information that was not shared with the government about the intentions of Hamas. Hamas was preparing exactly what they actually eventually executed. And of course, going to be the question of whether the government is responsible for things they didn't know of, or they were misled by the intelligence community and by the military to believe that Hamas doesn't pose a threat from Gaza. And this is all going to be discussed in the committee. And Netanyahu is afraid that a biased committee would put the blame on him, in spite of the fact that he believes that he has, of course, some responsibility, but not the kind of responsibility, not the kind of direct responsibility that those people you mentioned before and you show them demonstrating want to put on him. And the situation politically is very loaded, and it's very clear that some people see the committee not as a tool for finding out what actually happened, but as a tool to blame Netanyahu. And Netanyahu, of course, doesn't want that to be the case. So that's a very complicated issue in Israel.
Yes.
I hope that we should be able eventually to form a committee that would be trusted by the vast majority of the Israelis, not only by one part of it. And this calls for very difficult work on finding this kind of solution.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Yossi Cooper-Wasser for joining us and sharing that insight from Israel. Now, moving on, Israeli settlers have assembled at the Ibrahimi Mosque, also known to Jews as the Tomb of the Patriarchs, in Hebron for their annual pilgrimage. This event is organized by the settler movement to commemorate Chaye Sarah, life of Sarah, a significant figure in Jewish tradition. The gathering is taking place under heavy security presence, reflecting the sensitive nature of the site and the historical tensions in the region. Participants engage in religious rites and ceremonies to honor the memory of Sarah, while ensuring order and safety among the visitors. Let's listen into what the local has shared.
أنا عمال بنشوف قديش الاحتلال بيبتدع يعني مظاهر سلوكية مؤذية للفلسطينيين. يعني اليوم نتكلم على ما يسمى بعيد سارة، هذه من الأعياد المستحدثة وكأنه هذا عيد سياسي. يعني حتى التوراتيين واليهود ما بيعترفوا بهذا العيد إنه عيد ضمن السياق التاريخي. هذا العيد ابتدعوه السياسيين لإيجاع الفلسطينيين، لخلق بيئة طاردة للسكان، للأهالي، للمار.
Now we move on. Tensions remain high as Lebanon plans to file a complaint with the UN Security Council against Israel. The dispute concerns a concrete wall Israel is building along Lebanon's southern border that reportedly extends beyond the UN-mapped Blue Line. The Blue Line separates Lebanon from Israel and the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights and was established after Israeli forces withdrew from South Lebanon in 2000. UN officials say the wall has made nearly an acre of Lebanese land inaccessible to locals. Lebanon calls the construction a violation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701 and an infringement on its sovereignty. Israel denies the wall crosses the Blue Line, saying it is part of a long-term border security measures. UN peacekeepers in Lebanon, known as UNIFIL, have requested the barrier to be removed. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Yossi Cooper-Wasser. He's an Israeli intelligence and security expert, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Yossi, for staying with us. Yossi, what is actually going on with this contradicting side or contradicting talks, statements from both sides, Lebanon and Israel, and what strategic objectives might the IDF be pursuing by erecting this barrier in disputed areas?
Well, first of all, I think that you should just go to the place, to this place, and find out whether it crosses the line or doesn't cross the line, because this can be verified on the spot once they reach the place. I guess that if Israel says that it doesn't cross, then it probably doesn't cross, but we can see what the experts say. In the wider perspective, the strategic view in this respect is that Israel is frustrated with the fact that the Lebanese government doesn't do what it has to do in order to disarm Hezbollah. And so that we have to better prepare ourselves to the fact that Hezbollah continues to operate in southern Lebanon and in Lebanon in general. And for that purpose, we need to be better protected in certain areas where the terrain is not favorable for defense. And that's why we keep presence in 5 locations inside Lebanon to be better able to protect ourselves. That's why we have to build this wall that would guarantee that people cannot shoot directly at our people in their communities from within Lebanon. That's the situation. In the meanwhile, we also take action against those Hezbollah forces that try to redeploy in southern Lebanon and try to rearm and regroup outside of southern Lebanon in the northern parts of the country of Lebanon. And that's what's happening. And we call upon the Lebanese government to fulfill the obligation that they took upon themselves to disarm Hezbollah. Unfortunately, they have endorsed a plan to do that, but they don't implement it. They do not show any signs that they have any intention to do that.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Yossi Cooper-Wasser for joining us today and sharing that insight. Now we move on to Syria. Syrian Foreign Minister Assad al-Shaibani has met with Anne-Claire Legendary, political advisor to French President Emmanuel Macron in Damascus. The talks focused on bilateral relations and issues of mutual interest. Officials said the meeting aimed to strengthen ties in ways that serve the common interests of both countries. No further details were disclosed on specific topics discussed. This follows earlier discussions between Syria and France in Bahrain on November 1st during the Manama dialogue. Legendary's visit comes amid renewed European and regional diplomatic engagement with Damascus after years of international isolation. Now we stay in Syria. 2 people were killed and several others wounded in a shooting at a cafe in the western countryside of Homs province, Syria, on the evening of November 15th. Unidentified gunmen had opened fire inside the crowded cafe before fleeing the scene. Syrian authorities have launched a full investigation with specialized units working to apprehend the attackers. The area was immediately cordoned off as evidence was collected, and additional security measures have been implemented to ensure public safety. The motive behind the attack remains unclear, and no further details on the injuries have been released at this time. And that's a wrap on Gulf Today. Keep watching News X World for more news updates from around the world.